tradition.
What, one slide presentations?
Yes. Knowing you, you'll do too.
One slide presentations?
Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SEO Fight Club. I'm just popping out the YouTube chat and saying hello and telling people to ask questions. And be sure to ask questions early because sometimes we don't have enough time to get to everybody's questions. It's not every show, often we do get to everybody's questions, but if it's really urgent, I recommend you ask it early. Otherwise, it might happen the following show. Additionally, if you have questions outside of our show airing, our live show, you can go to SEOfightclub.org, which is the SEO Fight Club community forum, and you can ask your favorite SEOs questions there. And you can help us build this new community. So brand new free thing to do. So if you are looking for somewhere to continue the experience after the show, that's where we're at. So check it out, SEOfightclub.org. Madge, what's new in your world?
A few things. So since January, or sorry, starting from November of last year, Magic PR has now got video shorts, video breaking news type of designs for actual video PR. So what we're doing, we're analyzing the press release that we're writing for our clients that have been approved. We then convert them into actual video breaking news and uploading them on YouTube and embedding them in the PR. We then also analyze it again, create a video short, and publish it across 5 different platforms. So your Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We're creating a social media post for every single PR. And again, going across the major platforms, social media platforms. And we're also, one other thing we're doing, Pinterest. So I've been speaking highly about Pinterest lately. We're averaging around we started it again 6th of Jan, and it's already at 2,500 monthly views, the Pinterest account, for our newsroom. So every press release that we're publishing, we're creating 6 different pins, 6 different images, and queuing it into a system where it publishes a different one every single day for a different client and goes onto Pinterest, and the link is going back to the actual PR. So there's traffic coming from social media platforms, from YouTube now, from all over the place. So from brand engagement, traffic, mentions, everything, it's looking really good. And I think we are the first to be incorporating everything as an all-in-one solution.
That's amazing. It's an evolution of the press release. It's a distribution plus social media marketing.
Correct, yeah. Thank you.
Very cool. So I'm excited to see white papers down the road. So yeah, that would be amazing. Because I'd imagine that these new services, like if you had something difficult to sell, so a little uh, uh, spoiler for Eric Schwartzman here, like an obscure bottle of wine, and you made a press release about how that obscure bottle of wine really pairs well with pasta puttanesca, then you could kind of see if all this social media brings more traffic to that obscure bottle of wine that people otherwise wouldn't know how to find. They wouldn't know how to search for. And so in something like this, there may be opportunities to market things that are otherwise very hard to market with keyword targeting.
Yeah, because
Um,
what I can see, Ted, is a press release can only go so far, right? So
yep.
getting that engagement from different platforms will definitely help any type of business. So the crazy thing is the TikTok only went live start of Jan. We're averaging between 400, around 4 to 500 views per video. And that's without us doing any promotion, any advertising on there, just uploading the video and seeing what it does. So the first few were a lot higher, but yeah, now it's averaging around 500. And even YouTube Shorts and even the videos are doing well.
Yeah, I'd imagine any business where you have to educate as part of the advertising.
Hmm.
This would probably be an interesting thing to experiment with because with these videos and podcasts and shorts, you get
Yeah,
your chance to educate as part of the distribution.
yeah. Let's see where it takes us.
Awesome. All right. I am going to share my screen. I have one slide, and I know that Lee and Charles also have things to present. So let me share my one slide and get it out of the way. All right. So here's my one slide. Let me make it big. There we go. I just biganated the slide for you. So, my observation is that largely the new variations in Google are seeking to answer questions that are in the anchor text. And it's kind of like every website that's targeting a question with the page is kind of getting its own little personal featured snippet treatment, whether they want it or not. And so, in the featured snippet, historically, if you ask the question, what are the animals at the top of the food chain called? It would tell you apex predator is the answer. Well, here we're seeing in the search results, if you're targeting questions, they're doing the same thing. They're trying to snip it and highlight the answer. This is potentially exploitable because this might be a way to force the summary text. So if you surround the answer with promotional stuff, might be a way to put CRO back into the search results. But I'm not a big fan of this because they're taking the reason for being of the content and they're putting the worst possible spoiler so that people don't have to click the link. And they're doing it without permission. They're trying to spoil the content and keep the traffic on the site. And I think this only hurts people because if you are interested in the question, spoiling the answer, it really does diminish the reason to click. What do you think about this, Lee?
I think it looks like it's almost like giving everybody a featured snippet, instead of just one site, answering at the top, the average DUI attorney costs between, $3,500, $12,000, with the highlight of the page that it's coming from. It's basically doing that for the entire page. So it goes back to all the arguments that we had, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and whether you can, as you mentioned, getting clever. Okay, can I put some stuff around the answer that still entices the click, so I can pull the traffic away from Google and onto my site where it does me good rather than doing good for Google.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the counter to this is to look at the exploit potential and use it to actually take the click back. There has to be there has to be some way to work with this because yeah, as it stands, I think it's a net loss for SEOs and website owners. What do
Yeah,
you
let me ask,
think?
yeah, Charles, I was going to ask Charles, back with the enterprise stuff in your enterprise days, did you guys target a lot of questions or, did this was just an
We
unexploited area of content for you?
we rarely ever targeted questions. As a matter of fact, I found it hard to get the site to get folks to build content that answered the questions that people were asking. Most enterprise companies, they want to answer the question that they want to ask. They want to ask the question and answer the answer. They don't really dig that much into what customers are. Some do, but
Yeah.
most of them, they have their kind of marching orders, like we want people to know about this or we want people to know about that. Um,
So this
with
just
that
hits basically
said,
content providers then.
yeah, when I did get folks to agree, hey, we should go after the snippet or something like that, we would almost always grab it within a couple of weeks of targeting it. Um, the thing that I see this is just going to make it harder for companies when they say, hey, why isn't Google grabbing my meta description? That was always a big thing I was constantly hearing. Folks in legal and marketing would want to get involved in the meta description crafting, and then Google would grab something from the page and they would get all bent out of shape over that because they didn't grab what they built and they wanted
Yeah,
to call
yeah.
Google and yell at them.
Prior to these latest changes, the answer was make your meta description more relevant. You know, if you put too much CRO in the meta description, you know, it's like Google would say, oh, it's no longer relevant to what the page is. So you'd make it more relevant. This is a different answer. It's make it more relevant unless your title suggests a common question, then you need to make sure it includes the answer that Google would pick. Um, yeah, what do you think, Clint?
Well, I think this is just the evolution. So you guys hit it on the nail. We were putting in our meta descriptions. We were able to put exactly what we wanted in there, and Google decided, as Google always does, that they can do better than SEOs. So they created machine learning that went and rewrote all those or ripped content off of the page. That did horrible. But then they saw how SEOs ate up the featured snippets. No, those are the greatest things since sliced bread. Not realizing that they were going to kill their own traffic. You and I were saying that long ago when those things came out. And this is just the evolution where the team that's responsible for this said, hey, let's use featured snippets in the meta descriptions. We can answer that. And this is good for Google because it keeps the viewer on that page more likely to click ads, which is their primary money-making effort. So, and they get to use your content to do it. And we can't stop them from doing that, short of putting the no snippet code, and that's not going to be helpful for a site owner either. So, and they know it.
Yeah,
How do
and
you optimize for this? I hate to give the guy credit because he's such a scumbag, but it would be the method that Corey was teaching, where you answer the question, the first sentence after the question is asked, you answer it directly, but you can see that pattern there, and then you do the follow up in the question in the sentences after that, and that seems to be how Google is picking these up. And Corey figured that out.
I wonder what would happen if you no snippeted your content.
uh, bad things happen.
Yeah,
I know we used to, and then it changed to that, but I wonder if it's still that
Yeah,
way.
the latest incarnation of that is no snippet dynamically turns a tag into a no index zone. It may still boost, but the content won't be indexable.
Hmm.
So
Where
you
they
got
just
to
don't
be careful with no snippet.
where they don't serve you. So it'll still index, it'll still boost, but that fourth step in Google's process of the serving, maybe they just won't serve that result.
yeah.
Yeah. Tread carefully with that,
It's
because
worth
I
a
know the
test.
behavior has
Yeah.
changed.
That's why we have test sites so that we
Yeah,
can
that's what I was saying.
around.
I would agree. It's definitely worth a test to see what, what will Google do.
All right. Well, that was my observation. So I will stop sharing and hand it over to Lee or Charles, whoever's faster.
Charles, you want to go or you want me to?
Yeah, why don't you go? I like following up a nice depressing deck about how
You know
tools are lying to you.
what's great is you making me your warm-up act. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. Sharing
Ted's
is
the guy out.
turned on. You know what? What kind of show are we running here, Ted?
Oh, you know me, nothing but a pro.
Ted's playing God with the sharing again.
Yeah. Just be
You had a
totally blunt
slide.
and give me 15 minutes and I'll get it every time.
All right. Ted had a slide today, so he just basically locked the rest of us out. That's the way that goes. So let's go here, from here. All right. There we go. So first thing, tested SEO training. We're down to the last week or so before people can get in. We've talked about different angles of that over the last, 3-4 weeks. And one that came up that's kind of interesting that I'm not sure people realize about the training is that it is interactive. We have, as SEOs, we tend to be loners. We tend to be introverted and, not getting out away from our computers a lot, not interacting with the rest of the world. We lurk on Fight Club, we lurk on SEO forums and all that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of that goes on, but you know, the training, we do force people to interact with each other. There's a lot of, group activities and other things that go on, and that's helpful. I mean, even on the back end, we have, a mastermind where people share information and share ideas and, share just knowledge of themselves. And that's generally pretty helpful to those that are part of it. And I remember it was August 2023. It was at Digital Unfiltered, and it's VIP day, and they had all the VIP speakers at the front of the room. And towards the end of it, Terry Samuels got up and he made a kind of a plea to those participants, those that had come to the conference. He said, you guys need to take advantage of this. You need to reach out and talk to the speakers, hang out with them, go to lunch, those sort of things. Don't be afraid to say, hey, my name is, Lee and blah, blah, blah. And I really enjoyed your talk and things like that. He said, because, your network is kind of your net worth. And I looked up and down the table, and I think of the 20 something speakers that they had, there were only 2 that I didn't know well and couldn't reach out and call. And I think that's a valuable piece when you can develop a network of other SEOs that you can reach out to, and they're talented, because you can't know everything in this industry. It's definitely worth doing, and that's a big part of what the training entails. So if you're interested, reach out to me. We start February 19th, but the pre-training actually starts beginning this Wednesday. We start to drop little things for people to do. So if you're interested, reach out to me on Skype, test it all, and we'll set up a time to talk.
Yeah, the mastermind group after you complete the training is one of the best resources. So when it's over, it doesn't actually end. You actually get into the mastermind group, and people in the group, they'll do presentations and teach everyone in the mastermind group new things. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. The mastermind is worth the price of admission right there.
Yeah, because you got people like Charles that'll share shit. He drops nuggets. Ted, everybody. Go ahead,
I'll
Charles.
tell you, Lee, after the last 2 weeks of masterminds, I'm like sweating bullets now to do my mastermind presentation, because I got to bring it, because the last 2 presentations blew me away. And I'm like, oh man, I got to completely break it down to studs and come up with something much better.
Everybody has different things that they know. Everybody has different things to share, and you never know. I used an example It was several months back, Stephanie Solheim did a little presentation. She was just showing how she was using, I think, Claude for her content. She shared a couple of prompts and everybody just ate it up because it was better than what most of us were doing with our prompts to create, content and things like that. And she didn't think it was anything special, but, to the rest of us, that was like gold. So it's good stuff. So in terms of presentations, like 3 weeks ago, I talked to you guys about how tools can lie a little bit. We talked a little bit about maps and how some of the maps results can be deceptive. A couple of weeks ago, we talked a little bit about variations and things like that. Now Ted's depressing us with the fact that variations are getting harder to find in the SERPs. Thanks a lot, Ted. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And last week we talked a little bit about lorem ipsum and how some of the content theories out there don't deal with lorem ipsum. Today we're going to go back a little bit to how tools lie again. And I've talked to people about this a little bit. I've given this example. So let's suppose we know nothing about SEO, absolutely nothing. And we have a website and we want to rank it because we've heard, people come to the Google and they search for things and they click on things and then they buy things and we want people to buy. So the question is, where do we start? Well, we might start by looking at the SERPs and looking at some of the sites that come up when we search for different things. And we might ask questions like how many words are on the page or how many images that we're noticing things or how many sections. And as we spend some time and dive a little deeper, we might even notice that the words that we search for are on the page. We don't know that they're called keywords yet, but we're kind of diving into what are those things and, how are they coming up and how many there are. And then we start to compare the top sites to the bottom sites to see if we can detect patterns in there that might be useful to helping get our site to rank. And then we craft our first theory because, in our investigation of the data, we notice that top sites have more of this stuff and bottom sites have more of that stuff. So we want to make sure that our site has more of this stuff and it doesn't have very much of that stuff because that seems to push people down to the bottom. That's basically SEO in a nutshell. And that's more or less how all SEO tools work. I'm going to talk about Quora. So everything that I'm saying about Quora applies to all of these other tools. I love Quora. And Ted will admit that there are problems and issues with all SEO tools, the ones that I'm going to highlight here. The first thing is all of them identify some top sites. Now, they don't all agree on what the top sites are. Some might take, page one or the top three or let you pick, or maybe it's the top 30. But you're taking a look at those top sites and then you're measuring some things, and the tools all measure different things. They think different things are important. And I think this is one of the differentiators of Quora. Quora is actually agnostic. It's not sitting there and saying, here are the thousands of factors that we measure. They're all important. It's saying, hey, we're measuring thousands of things and we're letting you decide what's important. Is that a fair characterization, Mr. Kubaitis?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of clue hunting with correlation, but by and large, it's all still your priorities. And we would hope that people would look at the data, see what the competitors are doing, and then formulate a better strategy. But it seems like most of the industry is just copycat is the strategy, which has a lot of problems.
Oh, you, sir, you are teasing the end of this. That's awesome. So after we measure those factors, we're going to compare those measurements, comparing our site to those top sites. Maybe it's one site we're comparing to or a bunch of sites. And then we're going to adjust to make our site look like those ones that are ranking up high. And it might look something like this. We might sit there and say, hey, we've got factor one here and, factor one has got 35 and, our site has 30. So sorry about that. We're going to change this. So we're going to add 5 more. That's the recommendation because we got 5 less than the top sites. We're going to add more. In factor 2, top sites got 220. We've got 20, so we're going to go add 200 more. And here's factor 3. We've got 15. Everybody's got 10, so we're going to go ahead and remove 5. That's kind of our, the way that we're laying that out here. The thing is, we don't know any better. we're copying their good SEO. We're just basically using a mimic strategy, which is what Ted was talking about. But we're also copying their bad SEO. And this is where the problem comes in. I see this a lot with tools, not just Quora, but a lot of the tools as well. So here, as an example, factor one, it says add 5 more. Well, do we need to add any at all? Is 30 good enough to compete? Are we close enough? Do we have to be at 35? What about factor three? It says remove 5. Well, I generally don't like to remove stuff, but what if the optimum is 25? We should be adding 10, not subtracting 5. And here, if we're looking at this, we're looking at the wrong site, because this one pops up a lot. So if we look at a local SERP, for example, we've got plumber sites here, and we've got in green there, we've got some directory sites. And we know the directory sites have a lot more heading tags. So, do you really think we need to add another 70 heading tags to make our site competitive? I would say no, especially when I'm looking at some other sites that are just like ours that have got, 15, 16, 19. They're all right around where we've got it.
Yeah, this is one of those examples where, never say never, but as an SEO, you might say, well, I don't want to start there. If all else fails, we can come back to that. But
Right.
you gotta make a strategy that makes sense, and going and copying the most ridiculous outliers, that might not be a great strategy either. So you really got to think these things through.
Well, here in this particular case, like Quora, most people have it set to the max strategy as a default, which would say, hey, you need to go add 70 more. But you have to be the SEO and say, well, that's a directory site. They're using heading tags in a different way. I want to look at some of these other sites, and see if I'm competitive with other plumbing sites that look like me, because I'm not trying to be a directory site.
Yeah, and like my experience on those directory sites is those are going to be very deeply nested internal pages with zero external backlinks. So oftentimes you don't even need to worry about those. You can ignore them because you're going to beat them with off page anyway.
Right. So, here, I once tested adding 54,000 heading tags to a page. I've tested lots of different additions of heading tags and variations and structures of them. I mean, if headings were the magic, we would know. It's not, heading tags have their place and they're important zones, but it's not about, the number of them. So normally the way that I look at a core report or some other reports is, there's a whole bunch of recommendations here, but I might zero in and say, here's the one that I'm going to pay attention to, or here's a couple that I'm going to pay attention to. I'm focusing in on what are the important factors, not just all the recommendations that are there, because not all of them carry the same weight.
Yeah, I teach it in a slightly different way. I tell people to look for the story in the data.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll see that there are, 25 deficits related to headings. All right, so headings might need some work. And then you'll see that, they've neglected schema entirely. Okay, so they're neglecting a whole category of ranking signal. And then you might see
Exactly.
that they're 4% short on keyword density. And so you're identifying the culprits, not necessarily pinpointing the factors. And so you'll get it down to 3 or 4 culprits, of which, maybe a dozen or more factors would support.
Exactly. Exactly. So Charles, you had something?
Well, I was going to basically say the same thing that Ted said, is that I typically what I find is that when you find deficits, they're usually a symptom of another problem. So my deficit could be I don't have enough leading keywords in header tags or leading variations in header tags. Really, the problem is maybe I don't have any header tags. Like it's not that, yes, I don't have any
Right.
leading, but I don't have any heading tags. So it goes back to, I don't know if you guys remember years and years ago, Google used to give you recommendations in Search Console. They'd say, oh, your title tags are too short. And I typically found that when they would tell me a title tag was too short, it wasn't that the title tag was too short. It's that Google was indexing a page that it shouldn't be indexing. And that was really the problem. The title tag being short was a symptom of the problem. And that's kind of like what Ted's talking about. Is you look for the story, and often these deficits or over optimization is really a symptom of something else that you're doing on the site. So
Exactly. So here's the thing, measurement's critical, but measurement without understanding is a problem. And that's what I see a lot with people that are having, blindly following a lot of these tools. Because for efficient, cost-effective SEO, it's critical to know which factors matter and which ones don't. So you can, focus on the things that matter and can move things quickly. You don't have time to try to address, 1,600 different factors just because that's what comes up in Core or, other tools that measure a lot of different things as well. So what I say is, testing and analysis drives predictable SEO. Tested data holds up over time. Now, I am going to make one little thing here because I'm going to paraphrase Ted. He has basically a quote that goes, Einstein, Galileo, and Newton had it easy. You want to say that? Go into that one, Ted?
Oh, yeah. The idea is that physicists, Einstein, Stephen Hawking, all of them, Newton, they kind of had it easy because they didn't have a supreme being that was mucking around with the fundamental laws of nature. And so we as SEOs applying marketing science, we have it harder than they had it because we do have a supreme being that's mucking around with the fundamental laws of search. And so what we find in marketing science is that when there is a supreme power that mucks with the fundamental rules of how the whole system works, we have to rediscover things all the time. We have to verify that things still work the same. If they don't, we have to figure out how they change. We have to retest everything. And so, as a result of there being this supreme power mucking with the fundamental forces, we had to build tools to relearn all of marketing science in a very short order. So, tools like Cora were built out of how do we rediscover SEO after a big Google update? Well, now we can do it. We have a report from before the update. We get a report from after the update, and we tease out clues about what might have changed as a result of the update. And so it's testing is the same way. Uh, yeah, Einstein and Newton had it easy.
Yeah, so the tested data holding up over time has an asterisk. Most of it does hold up over time, or at least the fundamental drivers. Even when Google says, hey, we're going to turn up the gravitational constant for a little while or turn it down for a little while, it's still there. Correlational studies are good at highlighting potential ranking strategies. You hear that correlation's not causation, but as Ted likes to say, it shows you a good place to start digging. That is a great way of utilizing those. I love correlational studies in our industry. And of course, plug here, we drop a lot of nuggets here that give people some ideas about some things that work. But the fastest way to get the secrets is to hang around testers. It's always been the case because testers talk to each other and they share the good stuff. And I'll just really quick, when I first met Charles, this was at a conference that we were at. It was a SEO spring training conference, and we all knew that the SEO from Fox was going to be there. And so, he was there, and a bunch of us, went over and we're talking, and Charles was sharing some lovely insights on, enterprise SEO and some of the differences and some of the challenges, and it was fun. And then, people went to get drinks and, hors d'oeuvres and things like that. And it was just Charles and I, and he leans over to me and he goes, hey, I've got some really weird tests cooking. And this is the first time I'd ever met him. I was like, tell me what you got. And we just started, sharing information back and forth about some of those things because testers talk to other testers. But the thing is, you got to be able to reciprocate. You can't just go hang around a bunch of testers and just kind of say, hey, what you working on? Hey, what you working on? It doesn't work like that. I mean, there's only one place that I know of where you can do that, and that was SEO Intel, and you have to pay to get those tests. And it's, there's only a certain number of tests that they will. The really, really good stuff generally doesn't get published. So that's that. The biggest thing here when you're looking at tools is you got to think critically about how SEO really works. What I see people doing all the time is asking their tools, what should they do, and default leaving the decisions to the tool rather than thinking it through themselves. I mean, the tools highlight things that you need to consider. It's a tape measure. I mean, Ted says it all the time. Quora is a tape measure. So don't make the tool into the CEO of your business. Don't let it make all the decisions for you. Learn how to use and how to interpret those measurements. And I don't care what the tool is. So comments on that one, Ted?
Yeah, we see it all the time. Cora's gonna eventually tell you that one of your competitors that's higher ranking used 24,000 more words than you. And if you're a copycat, you're gonna make a whole lot of work for yourself. But if you're a tester, then you know that you can beat that skyscraper with a shorter article with a much higher keyword density. And then along comes Clint Butler, who says, well, I'm going to outrank Ted's keyword density with nothing but schema. And then along comes Lee Witcher, who says, I'm going to outrank Clint's nothing but schema with a topical relevancy, topical density. And then along comes, some script kid who's gonna have a loosely relevant page and is gonna throw, just a mountain of authority links on it. There's more than one way to get to the top. And so, because of that, if you're doing client SEO, you have to think about the strategy of how you can get there with the least expenditure of time and resources. And so that's that efficiency of ranking. And if all you do is copy the competition, your efficiency isn't very good. I can tell
Yeah,
you
I think
that.
that's one of the things on that other slide where I was just saying, I'm looking at all these particular recommendations or all these particular measurements, and I'm saying, yeah, I don't care, don't care, don't care. Maybe later, maybe later. I'm going to go after this one because that's critical. It's
Yeah.
understanding that these are bigger levers and not, treating everything that pops out of a tool as, oh, these are all the things that I have to fix now in order to rank.
Yeah, when you see the list of deficits, you're trying to identify the prime suspects, and you want to get it down to 3 or 4 prime suspects, and then you figure out which one is probably the likely one. So go after that first. You're coming up with a plan and you're setting priorities. You're saying we're going to work on the deficits for suspect number 1 first, and then we're going to work on the deficits for suspect number 2 next. And, and you're saying no to a lot of factors on those lists. You're just saying, I'm not saying never, but we'll come back to the everything else if all else fails.
Charles, you looked like you had something to say.
No, I guess that's just my normal face.
I'm getting used to reading your normal face. So anyway, that's it for me. So Charles?
Share. Thank you very much, Lee. So what I'd like to talk about today is this popped up on Search Engine Roundtable, I don't know, a week or two ago, a couple weeks ago. Google made a comment. Google asked somebody asked a question of John Mueller, who he replied to him on Blue Sky or something like that. And we get this headline: merging content more challenging than site moves for SEO. And that anytime I hear site moves and merging content, my antennae always pop up, and I'm like, really? Well, let's see what's going on here. So the first thing I'll say is, merging pages, yep, that's a migration. Anytime you're going to change the number of URLs on your site, and specifically if you're getting rid of URLs, you've got a migration on your hands. So let's look at exactly what the person asked, because often with these headlines, the headline doesn't always give us the exact answer, and Google doesn't always give the correct answer. Or really, I should say the answer that was asked. So someone's asking here, hey, they 301 a page to another page. They're saying logged out rankings show the new merged page is successfully rolled into all old queries. He says he logs in and he's still seeing the old URLs, and he's asking about cache systems. He's like, is this a different cache system? John Mueller completely avoids the question about the cache system, doesn't answer in any way, shape, or form. He says something interesting is that even with a site move, actually says merging is a bit more challenging than a simple site move. I just give it time, meaning seeing the new URLs. So the first thing I like to say is, really, John, a simple site move. You said, this is a quote from John to the right here, someone asking, SEO asking help, is there a way to prevent search traffic from search traffic loss when launching a new site? And John Mueller's quote was no. So I find that hard to say, like, well, you're saying a simple site move always loses traffic. Is that what he's saying? This, I think, goes back to the lesson here is be very, very careful listening to what Googlers say. They contradict themselves constantly. They love being, especially John Mueller loves being sarcastic and giving snarky responses. And you can't always notice that when you're reading things on Twitter or Blue Sky or wherever he's roaming around. I don't trust things that Google says. I trust what Google writes in their developer's guide. So that's just thing number one. There's actually a lot of good lessons from this question, from a very simple question. Let's talk about merging content in general. There weren't a lot of details in the question. I kind of inferred a few things, but we don't know for sure. The first question I always like to ask when folks want to start merging things is, well, why did you merge the content, or why do you want to merge the content? Is page A and page B, are they exact duplicates? Are they just functionally the same? Often what a business owner will say is, well, this service is just like this service, but they're completely different keywords, and that's not how people search it. So for example, tankless water heaters and water heater installation, a plumber may say, well, it's essentially the same thing. A tankless water heater is a kind of water heater, so it would all just go on the same page. And well, not necessarily. It really depends on how Google treats those pages, and we have to look in the search engines. The next question I'd always ask is, if we're merging content, do we have keywords that are cannibalizing each other? Like, what keywords was each one ranking for? Was there cannibalization going on? If there wasn't cannibalization going on, then personally, I don't see a reason to merge things typically. It really depends on what exactly is happening. But with that said, not all cannibalization means you should be merging pages. Cannibalization could just mean you need to be more specific and more exact in your pages. Mm-hmm. Then the other question is, how do you merge content? Are you doing page one is going over another page, or are you taking two separate pages and putting it onto a third page? So those are two very different things that are happening. When he merged the content, did he add a section for the new content? Did they completely rewrite it? Is this new page optimized the same or better than previous content? See, all these things need to be taken into account. And I think this is probably why John Mueller was like, well, it can be a little more complicated than a simple site move. Whereas if you just take content, if you take one page, redirect it to another and say, well, they're kind of the same anyways, you're probably going to lose some traffic and lose some rankings. Maybe not. It really depends on what's happening with that page at the time. So these are things you got to think about. Like, if you want to merge content, first of all, should you be merging it? Are they really the same thing from an SEO, from an optimization standpoint? And if they are, how do we merge it to make sure the new page is better optimized than the old page? And let's talk a little about the URL echo kind of, and I've seen this before where old URLs kind of float around. And I've seen this with site migrations as well, where you can still find, you do a site colon command, you'll still find the old URLs, even though they barely show up in Search Console and they're still out there a little bit. I think this has to do with how Google transfers authority and knows what's going on. So the first thing I'll bring up is featured snippets. Featured snippet is likely a completely different system and database than the organic results. So if we're talking about a featured snippet and an old page is up there, you'll probably see an old page for a while. I've seen that myself. I've had pages that had featured snippets. Then the page went away or we changed the content and it took like a month for things to be updated in the snippet. So it's actually a little scary, Ted, about what you're talking about, how we're basically have all these little mini featured snippets now in the search results. Does that mean it's going to take a while for this stuff to update if we change things on our sites? I don't know, but I'm a little concerned. The next question I would ask is the current page still ranking in GSC? So if you go to GSC, is that current page still ranking for keywords? So this old URL, is it showing clicks? Is it showing impressions? What's it showing? What's it showing for URLs or for average page position? Just get a sense for is Google still serving this page or does Google just have it in its index? Those are two very different positions, having it in its index versus serving the page when people do a search. I would check the pages report in Search Console to see is it getting any kind of errors. Sometimes when a page gets an error, it'll remain in the index because Google won't drop it right away. And then the other questions, and I think the guy answered this, is it is getting the rankings, but I would, again, double check Search Console. Is it getting all the new impressions and clicks? So if page 1 had 100 impressions and 100 clicks, page 2 had 100 impressions and 100 clicks, hopefully page 2, the new one, has 200 impressions and 200 clicks. If there's any loss, then we have to figure out, well, what is that loss? Is it just because there was overlap, or is it because we're not ranking as well for as much as we used to? And here's the big question I always ask whenever you're doing any kind of migration or site moves. How will Google find the old URL to refresh its database? And that's one of the reasons why things stay in the database for a while. When you do a migration or when you do a refresh of some kind or some kind of page move, people are quick to take the old page down, as they should, my 301 redirected over, but then they scrub their website of links to the old page. How does Google know that page has gone down? It's got to wait for the Google to come back and hit the 301. And I've seen this myself, both with large sites and small sites, that just because a page 301 redirects doesn't mean Google will accept that immediately. They'll come back and check multiple times. Same with 404s. As a matter of fact, if that page has a link to it, it will probably check that old URL in perpetuity. Just to give a little data, a little field data about merging content, I did do a site where we merged content. We had about 3,500 pages. We went down to 300 pages. So this was a lot of pages to reduce. I was very concerned about it. Google did keep the old URLs in the index for several months. And you can see as far as like traffic loss, we did experience traffic loss for a couple months. That first month obviously was a drop. By the second month, it started going up immediately. And by the fourth and fifth month, we were back to where we were before. And we ended up actually even being better than we were before. So you can expect to see a traffic loss if you're doing massive merging of content, but you should be able to regain it if you do all the merging properly. And that's really the key, is understanding how Google crawls pages, how Google understands the new page. Going back to what Lee was talking about, is this new page optimized? Do you have the factors covered or not? If you're just going to merge everything into one page and this new page doesn't cover everything the old pages cover, then you're going to probably lose traffic. So that's just a little, a little walk into merging pages, kind of like a mini migration. Anybody ever has any problems or, needs help with SEO, specifically merging and migrations, just feel free to reach out to me. You can bit.ly me, Charles Taylor SEO. I'm all over the place and I'm here, so you can always message me here.
Yeah, nice. There's definitely a lot of hazards with this type of thing because every website's situation is different. So, for example, you might have a website that's merging content because they had 1,000 pages for DUI lawyer in different cities. And so they're cannibalizing all the wrong cities to the wrong cities now, and they want to fix that. And so they're going from 1,000 pages down to 1. And when you do that, you're probably orphaning external backlinks, and you're definitely orphaning internal backlinks. And that even doesn't address any of the migration issues. That's just how you're impacting authority. And so, yeah, depending upon your situation, you might find that almost no two migrations are the same.
And I think this goes back to what you guys were both talking about. what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? Is the question you always have to be asking yourself, because you can use tools and you can use processes. Like I have processes. I'm helping someone right now with a migration. I have a process of steps we go through. And as we're going through, we found out, oops, we can't do X with this work, with this system. This system doesn't allow us to do what my process tells me we need to do. So we got to figure out a way around it. And then understanding, well, why it's not just this is the process, but why is the process like that? Just like using Quora, why is Quora tracking all these different, all these different variations? Well, because variations are important to Google. So if you can't get one in an H1 tag, well, what else could you do to send a signal? Because that's really the key. We have to send a signal to the search engine. As Ted, you always say, there's lots of ways to the number 1 position. You just have to understand, what is it you're trying to achieve? Is it an authority? Is it some kind of content? Is it some kind of, some kind of technical thing you're trying to make the search engine see?
Yeah. What are your suspects and how are you going to apprehend them?
Exactly.
All right. Let's look at some questions here. So we got a comment. Business Growth Ready is saying it's like the AI spoilers is like if Netflix was going to spoil the plot on the shows and movies, and it would negate the reason to watch the shows and movies. Yeah, it's basically that, but for web pages. Let's see. How do you educate the decision maker about the quality of contextual links? I think it's pretty short and simple. It's another signal, and you don't want to neglect a category of signals because Google is a diversity ecosystem. And if you just say, I'm not going to do schema, you're neglecting an entire category of signals. And there are web spam algorithms that find, two trick ponies. So if your website is doing the same two things over and over again, I'm pretty sure that Google can see that and could ignore your two tricks just for your page dynamically on the fly. And the way you get around locking yourself out is by having good diversity of signals. So you have to think of all the levers you haven't been pulling and go pull those levers. And that's one of the hardest things to do.
And that's what Quora is good with. Quora will show you all the different levers out there. You don't have to have every single factor, but you can see, hey, I don't have a diversity of factors. I need more diversity.
Yeah, one thing the Quora community has seen and known for years now is that the diversity factors are always pinned at the top. So, read it how you will. The according to the Quora community, the strongest factor in SEO is the number of factors you're using.
Ted, if I can add one thing to your Netflix analogy from 2 questions ago, not only is the AI would be like Netflix spoiling the movie, but it would be like Netflix spoiling the movie because they make more money if you just scroll through movies. Like, because that's exactly what Google's doing.
Yep.
So imagine Netflix spoiling movies because they said, yeah, we make more money from people if they just scroll through our movies endlessly.
Yeah, we're really about the banner ads.
Yeah.
All right. Any more comments on educating decision maker about contextual links?
I think I didn't like the premise of the question because as the SEO, if you've done a good job of saying, look, you're a roofer, I'm an SEO, I'm not going to tell you how to shingle a roof. You don't tell me how to SEO a website. You have to establish that authority and that particular relationship there. If somebody has some curiosities about it, you can lead them, but it almost feels like, the client is taking control of the SEO situation, and that usually ends up being really, really horrible. So, I would say they did a bad job of setting up the client relationship to begin with, that they're in the position where they're having to educate the client about, these steps.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to educate the SEO. You have to say, look, you have plenty of perfectly fine contextual links. Stop tuning that. That might not be the problem.
Right.
So yeah, it's something you want to have and do well, but it's not everything. Let's see. Um, do you think in general using shorter SEO titles, URLs are better? Also, do you think adding variations will cause more deviation from the topic rather than helping? Well, the variations part, so those are going to be singular, plural forms of the keyword, different conjugations of the keyword, like plumber, plumbing. Um, they're going to be synonyms and related acronyms for the keyword, and then sometimes very closely related entities of the keywords. And so usually the variations are too focused. Like they're almost incarnations of exact match.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, the variations I don't see being a problem. Where things get tricky is with the entities, because that's where you can drift off topic. Where, my web page is a plumber web page, so I'm going to go into the history of plumbing and talk about the Roman aqueducts and the Latin origins of the word plumbing. And now it's no longer a plumbing website, it's a history lesson.
Hmm.
And the other thing to keep in mind with the entities is that there's a balance to them. There's not really a balance with the variations. There's a balance with the entities. So if you're selling boat insurance and you make a page that's 50% boat, 50% insurance, Google might view that as a boat page, but what are you selling? Insurance. So you got to know that the primary thing is insurance, but with a dash of boat. And same thing with locations. It's not a Seattle website, it's a Seattle plumber. So the thing we're selling is a plumber with a dash of Seattle. So you gotta get the balance right.
Here's an interesting thing. The length of the title tag piece, I mean, there's been testing going back, I don't know, a lot of years showing that the title tag outside the ellipsis, further out where you don't even see it, as it displays in the SERP, counts and has benefit for SEO. And I think it was, and I'd be surprised, Clint, you may have covered this on SEO this week. I'd be surprised if you didn't, that the white hat community came to discover this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, Joy Hawkins duplicated Kyle Roof's test.
Yeah.
I think where that misconception comes from, though, is because Google truncates the title. And so because they truncate the title, every SEO tool known to man says you can't have your title longer than this,
Mm.
because somehow having that truncation is bad. And I think users are past that now. Now we just got to get the SEO community to catch up.
Let's see. Let's see. Does adding a relevant video to a page directly improve SEO for that page? Well, there's a number of ways people use things like YouTube. So, for example, links in YouTube descriptions some of the time can behave like an indexing service. They can help you get new content discovered by Google faster. That may count as a relevant backlink. And as Clint likes to say, Google doesn't like punishing itself. So there's probably some benefits to working with Google ecosystems. And by itself, I don't think a video is a huge algorithmic factor, but I do tend to see marketing personas. Like I'll see videos on CNN and they're related to the article, but they're not about the article, but there's just a certain visitor who would rather watch the video than read the article. And so if you do both on the page, you cater to both personas and you're keeping more of your audience satisfied and on your page and engaged with content. And so I think that's what's happening. And you'll often see with a site like CNN, they'll use one video for a lot of related articles. So that one video will be on a lot of different pages. And if you think about the cost of the content, that video content is the most expensive to produce. So, yeah, you'd want to present it multiple places, multiple times to try to get an ROI on producing that content. And I think Charles would probably have a lot to say on this. What do you think, Charles?
So just having a video on the page does not directly help your site. I would actually say having a video on the page could hurt you if you do it wrong, like some sites I've worked with in the past, where it takes forever to load the page and or it auto loads, it auto runs, auto plays, I should say, and then that just pisses people off and they click the back button. With that said, I think adding video to pages is a good idea, but if you're going to do it, put in your video schema, mark it up properly. Let's take advantage of it so that you get that little featured snippet, not featured snippet, you get that little rich snippet in Google where it shows the video to the left-hand side, and you can even show up in the video section of Google search results. So I think video is awesome to have on website. I strongly recommend it. I had heard years ago that if you are hosting using YouTube, you won't get the snippet. They'll give it to YouTube. I haven't tested that, so I don't know if that's true. If I was going to put video on, if I was going to have video, if I had a site and I had video, I would put it on YouTube, but I wouldn't embed the YouTube on my page. I'd embed it via Vimeo or some other network, just so that I can have video on my page and then I have something someplace else. And as far as like having related videos on your page, so at Fox, they would occasionally, when a video there are videos that would expire, meaning the videos, for whatever reason, they couldn't put that video clip up anymore. They would take it down and put up kind of a generic video. I never saw that hurt our pages, ranking wise. So I don't think Google was doing any analysis of the video on your page.
Yeah, I'm going to say I haven't done any testing on that specifically, but what I will say is that just testing that idea, there's a lot of complexity that comes into it, because embedded in the question is like, is it a relevant video? Well, would a cat video work just as well? Is it the fact that you've got, multiple forms of media on the page? You've got text, you've got images, now you've got video. Is it the fact the presence of a video is a ranking factor? Is it a YouTube video that's helpful, or a Vimeo video is just as helpful? Does Google favor one platform over the other? And then you've got the relevance piece of the video itself that would have to be tested. So understanding all the dynamics, I mean, just in a simple little thing, hey, I want to stick a YouTube video on the page. Does it help or does it hurt? Understanding what the factor is that's driving the help or the hurt. There's multiple contenders there, even with something as simple as that.
How to pick the best domain name for a service website. Branding, it's got to be forward thinking, because if you do the exact match domain name, the rebrand down the road for that local business is going to be very expensive. So you want a brand that people understand and associate with the right industry. It has to be memorable. It ought to be, likable. And that's probably where you're gonna do right by a local business, like a service website. the best. And if you're doing rank and rent or affiliate, then you have a lot more considerations about those EMDs. But if you're actually trying to help a service business, then probably brand is the primary focus. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I think you've got a good example there of the trade-off. So if I have a brand like Magic PR, there's no confusing. Are you talking about the plumber? No, Magic PR, it's a press release service, and we know because there's nothing else it's got quite that. It's a unique name. And so, it's a very, very clear brand versus if I tried to, brand a keyword phrase like best Seattle plumber, it's going to be hard to pull off enough branding there. I mean, in the exact match, there are some benefits to having exact match that we know. But I think if I were doing it today, I would lean towards a unique brand name because it's just a whole lot easier to get Google to understand that this is a different entity and this entity, does what it does, whatever the business does. It's easier to associate that.
Yeah, brand definitely becomes a fundamental entity that Google likes to work with. So if you can get into the brand entity awareness of Google, that's a very good accomplishment. All right, let's see. Um, Looking for questions.
While you're looking for that, Ted, I just looked in my archive. I did actually test if you put a YouTube video on a page, will it help the rankings if you embed a YouTube video on the page? Now, this test is an old test. It was 2018. I'll give you guys the quick rundown. I put a video, so I set up the 5 pages back when you guys do the 5 pages. I added a video to a page that was ranking 5th, and the video and the page jumped to number 1. So I moved the video off of that page and moved it to another page, and they swapped. The new one went to number 1. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, you put a YouTube video on a page, you make it rank magically. And then I thought for a second and I said, I wonder if this is the presence of the YouTube video or is this a freshness thing? So I took the YouTube video off. It did not drop in rankings. I then took one of the pages and put an image in it. So I took page number 4 of my test, put an image in it. That jumped to number 1. So what I was bumping into wasn't adding a video to the page. I was bumping into a freshness thing.
Yeah.
Google was saying, hey, this page is more fresh than the last one. So my takeaway from that was I don't think it had anything to do with it. And then I fell down a rabbit hole for some other things. I never got back to it. But the quick answer was back in 2018, putting a YouTube video on the page did help the page, but also putting an image on the page helped the page too. It was just I was hitting freshness and not the presence of a video.
Yeah, and that's very common in testing is you accidentally test for something you are unaware you were testing for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most common mistakes. Like it's very easy to accidentally turn your test into a keyword density test. That was historically the most common mistake we'd find, and that's why we would teach people about it first.
I've run many tests where I basically prove freshness is a factor.
Yeah.
and my other factor wasn't a factor.
Yeah. If I'm going to
Yeah.
screw up, it tends to be in the keyword density side of things. Say, hey, I proved again that keyword density is a thing. That wasn't what I was testing. I was testing, does a YouTube video match? But I ended up testing keyword density somehow.
Yeah, the mistake I commonly make today recently is the submission order to Google. And so you got to be careful about the order of your tests because it could give you a false positive.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Well,
see.
isn't that in essence a freshness thing? The last one that you submit becomes the first
Well,
one.
I didn't update anything, but yeah, it's kind of like except it's different on the submission order. It's the oldest content ranks the best. And then you get a freshness bonus if you trigger an update, but you have to update to do the freshness one. And so, yeah, the thing I see is the opposite. It's the oldest content wins if there's no updates. Let's see. Um, all right. So we have one that you can also get an idea by looking at the keywords you should not be ranking to figure out what is wrong with the content. Yeah, that does occasionally happen.
SEMrush, baby. That was
Or
yours.
or Google Search Console, see what you're getting searches for, and if it makes no sense for your page, then investigate more.
Oh, wasn't that your top SEO factors? That was the SEMrush that spoiled you.
Yeah, yeah, and I've seen that thing happen, 4 or 5 times since then. It's pretty rare, but it does happen. Let's see. A YouTube video is too large a scope for comparison. High performance, well-tuned video with lots of shares, or random video with zero engagement. I mean, let's
Yeah.
be honest, they're mostly random videos with zero engagement. The question is, will those help? Because yeah, if you can get, viral videos, I mean, you're all good there. You own traffic. Let's see. Using a partial match or a keyword phrase and a domain name, than having a pure branded one. Well, I'd say it depends upon where that business is going in the future. Because if they're likely gonna have to rebrand eventually to get a decent brand, that is a very expensive maneuver. So I would put it in the mistake category if you're doing something that's going to have to be redone and is going to feel like starting from scratch. So that's what you want to avoid is that that problem down the line. Um Quality product videos are definitely a ranking factor in e-com. Possibly. We've seen things like number of prices correlate. We've seen things like image SEO have good impact on e-com pages. So that's totally in the realm of something Google would do.
Mhm.
The only question I'd
Um,
ask about that, Ted, and this is a question you've asked many times, is what is quality? If you say something's a quality video, do you mean it's on topic or it has views and likes or like what
well,
like what's the quality metric? That's
High
I
I,
def,
always
I
high
question
don't
def
that.
think
video.
there's a quality metric. I think the metric Google would look at is among the product photos, are one or two of them a product video.
Yeah.
And it would almost be like a Boolean factor. They're there, they're not. Google's not gonna look and see, do you have 4K video of the product and perfect lighting rotating on a turntable? You know, they're
Whoa,
not
dude,
gonna.
show me your data on that. I want to see.
Yeah, yeah. There's
I
that's
think
a lot of money.
the answer is in his question. This is none of your competitors have them and you do. So if there's 10 sites that have product name, description, and pricing, and an image, and then you have product name, description, pricing, image, and video, you stand out. So ergo you've checked this other box, diversity of factors. So it's kind
Diversity
of
of
we're going
factors.
full circle there.
Yeah. And even if it's the weakest factor there, it's still, it's going to boost, even so it's there.
See, what do you think about grumpy SEO guy SEO concepts? No clue, never heard of them. Have you guys heard of grumpy SEO guy?
I don't know. I would assume that was Clint, but I could be wrong.
Well, if that domain name's available, Clint, you ought to capitalize on it. Um, uh, and if it is a question about Clint, I love his concepts. He's usually right. Let's see. At scale, random videos always produce flyers, as Lee says.
That's basically one that'll just take off. If you do a whole bunch of them, you're going to get some that are just going to take off.
I don't know. I think viral content is an art, and it's not like 1 in 8 is viral automatically. I think you can make hundreds of videos that never go viral.
You
And
said that
then
was
they
a
don't,
little. Oh, go
those
ahead.
viral videos, you never get to see the research behind, how they came up with the concept, all the production behind it. You just think, oh, ta-da, it showed up. Eh, Those are the ones that are doing it on purpose, and the ones that are doing it on accident, like the Hawk Tuah girl. I mean, that's just a fluke. You can't intentionally make that situation happen.
Yeah. Lightning rarely strikes the same place twice. So the first one is a happy accident, but if you're, crafting it, then let's see you do it 5 times in a row.
Well, hell, I would take
Um,
it even if I had a method and I'd say, hey, this method produces, 1 in 8 go viral. Then I could sit there, if I had that, then at least I'm calling my shot. I say I'm gonna produce 16 videos and a couple of them should, take off. And then when it does, there's proof. But a
yeah,
lot of times you'll see the virality. After something goes viral, people will sit there and after the fact tell you, oh, here's all the stuff we did, so we knew it was going to go viral. I'm like,
Yeah.
but you did the same thing for these other videos of yours that have low view counts. So what was different about those than this one?
No, but in that one, the person was looking a little bit different. Notice how it's a little different. See, Lee, that's
Yeah,
the difference.
that's
That's
the
the kind of
difference.
answers I get. Drives me crazy when people Monday morning quarterback and why things worked. It's like, don't tell me the next day. Tell me before.
Yeah.
let's see. Grumpy SEO is all about domain authority and backlinks. He's against content ranking. Well, that sounds like he's ignoring entire categories of ranking signals, and we kind of know better on that. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying there's more than one way to the top.
When I see that description, I see that as someone like me who's like, I'm not Fox News, so I'm not publishing 50 articles a day because I can't promote 50 articles a day. So why would I subscribe to, let's use AI and make 10,000 pages? Well, I can't promote all 10,000 pages. I can maybe promote 10, realistically well. So now I have 9,990 pages that Google thinks are trash. So ergo, my site's trash. And that's a good, I think it's good. Like I'm totally against, oh, we're gonna just write content and create high quality content and Google's gonna love you. No, you gotta be a marketer and you gotta promote that stuff. And until you get a big ass brand and a big ass email list so you can send traffic at will, um, you got to build backlinks and you can't outpace your backlink production with your content production because you just have a whole bunch of trash on your website.
Let's see. What do you think about exact match anchors? I like them. It shouldn't be all you do. Uh, let's see. I started avoiding it a year ago, and my competitors has already taken me over using a nice amount of exact match anchors. Well, yeah, exact match is one of the important parts of the ranking score equation. And oftentimes I tell people who are using Cora when I see deficits involving exact matches that to me they leap off the page and require immediate attention because SEOs are terrified of exact matches and local SEO, especially because you can't say that Clint Butler is the best DUI lawyer Los Angeles you're gonna find because the exact match is a grammar mistake. So people just naturally avoid it in many situations. And so you want to make sure that you do use it. If it's awkward to use it, put it in an image alt, but don't neglect it.
Yeah, I
Thoughts?
think I think that's a great, because we know exact match is powerful, but the thing that people tend to avoid is what else could have caused this? Let's suppose it wasn't exact match. How else are your competitors, kicking your ass, or your competitors staying still and you're sliding because you've got some other issue? You've got, link decay or some technical issue that's just gradually making you slide backwards. So we're looking at a set of metrics and making a conclusion that may not be the correct conclusion.
Well, what would you say if they have no exact match on page?
Ha ha ha.
Yeah, so it's not everything, but
I would sit there and say Clint was joking in that video. That was him being sarcastic, saying don't use exact match.
All right. Well, that's all we have today. Thank you, everyone. I guess there's one last one here. Ranking for near me keywords. Yeah, you can make a page for that. Sometimes it doesn't do what you think it'll do, but I don't see anything against it, and I'm not saying go out and do it. It's a thing.
That's proximity. Proximity drives near me. You can manipulate it a little bit by adding near me to your pages if you want it, but at the end of the day, proximity to the searcher drives the near me searches. So complaining because someone near you found your page is kind of redonkulous to me.
Yeah, I call that 5% of a problem at best.
Yeah, I'd be like, whatever.
You said that, Clint, you said that very, very calmly. That blue hat is working for you, man.
All right. We'll see you next week. And so if you need a fix of SEO Fight Club, don't forget there's the SEOfightclub.org community forum, totally free. Come enjoy, come help us build another great free resource. If you need more video content, check out SEO This Week. He has a new episode every week, so it's there waiting for you. All right, bye bye.